Okay, today is going to be the first ridiculous PC build challenge that I've ever done on this channel. So a quick description about what this challenge is going to entail, what it's going to mean. It's going to be exactly how it sounds. We're going to build an entire PC out of pasta, and PC being sort of a loose term, we're not going to go for anything like crazy overpowered or anything, but mostly a media streaming type computer of sorts. And the case and everything it's connected to has to be made out of pasta. All right, without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Okay, so obviously we can't make motherboards and circuitry out of pasta. It just doesn't work. I mean, in the future, I'd like to try to make a ridiculous circuit board or something like that out of food or something else ridiculous, but that's not the way we're going today. I'm gonna try to make a case and try to just construct it out of pasta, and all the guts and internals will be typical computer components. And for our computer components, I have this Asus Transformer tab, which is a full Windows 10 tablet. I broke it years ago on the screen, so the touchscreen does not work at all. It's been mostly useless, but it's actually a decent little machine, though somewhat underpowered. It should be more than enough, so I'm gonna have to disconnect it from the rest of the board and transfer it and try to make a case out of the pasta and try to reconnect everything as it's supposed to be. So basically it'll have to use an external screen of some sort, which will be just my TV or something, since I plan on moving this to the living room afterward. Now I needed to test and see if my plan still works, so I got a USB dongle, USB splitter, and a micro HDMI cord. Now I could plug the HDMI cord and the USB cord into the back of the TV to power and display my tablet. And for my surprise, after 3 years, the tablet still works. Would you look at that? Now it's time to salvage all the parts off of this tablet. So I gotta unscrew the motherboard, the battery, and all the little parts that are stuck to the case. Using tweezers, I remove the screws that I unscrew, because that's what screwdrivers are for. And turns out to be quite a few of them on this board. Now it's time to remove the little cables that are sticking into the board, and also to remove the battery. I of course also have to remove the broken LCD and detach that from the adhesive. Now these are the Wi-Fi antennas. I'm going to want to be sure to be very careful with those so as not to damage them. This is the metal shroud that protects the battery. Gotta kind of rip that off. And there we go, the motherboard is free. Metal shroud into the trash. And here we have the two battery cells that are taped together. They're two 15-watt-hour batteries sealed together to make a 30-watt battery. Another thing I'm going to try to be careful of is the power button that is connected here. I don't want to damage that ribbon cable in any way, because then I'll never be able to power this thing on again. Now comes the real challenge, finding a way that I can place this thing, and it appears that I cannot stack this on top of the batteries, which frustrates me incredibly. But I'm gonna have to worry about that later and get going on building the main base to lay the parts down onto. Then I can worry about spacing a little bit afterward. And as you can see, I'm using uncooked lasagna strips. Now I'm trying to place the battery and see what kind of space I'm working with, but it turns out I'm gonna have to make this thing a little bit bigger than I had originally anticipated, which is a little bit of a bummer, but hey, it'll be full-size lasagna. The next small eternity hot gluing these lasagna strips together, but the hot glue will make for an interesting design effect in the end anyway. And now I would try to cut the adhesive tape that was binding these two batteries together, but found that there was a circuit board at the top which connected the two batteries together, and this frustrated me a little. So I had to electric tape it back together again so as to hold it back in place, and yeah, I was a little disappointed. but that's okay. Moving on to the dongle section, or I tried to make a front I/O or a back I/O, depending on which position it was in, to be able to make better use of the micro USB, and also creating other ports to connect to the motherboard, like the HDMI. Now, I was trying to get a good idea of what this was going to lay in the lasagna like. So we've reached day 2 of the build, and you can see that most of it is lined up now. I've got some wires set and glued into place. We got the dongle, which will serve as the I/O, and I've got the keyboard and mouse plugged into that now. And it's running into a micro USB splitter, so that I can charge it and have peripheral support at the same time, which is pretty cool. It doesn't work great since it's splitting the signals, but it'll do. And I also have a micro HDMI to the full-size HDMI plugged into that port, so I can plug it into a TV like nothing, which is pretty nice. Then we have the power button on the side. Now, I'm going to have to cover it up since it's such a tiny button, it's kind of hard to reach, but I've got that there. And I had to secure the ribbon cable there since it's basically paper thin and really needs to be protected. Now, I messed that up. I won't be able to use this anymore, which will really stink. And I've also got the volume buttons on the side there, but I'm not really going to use those. I have no real need for it. And you can see I've also taped the antenna down there. There's 2 antennas there so that it can get the 5 gigahertz speed. And I've got one taped down there, one taped down behind the I/O, which will function well enough.
The scary thing is that once I seal all this off and make it more permanent looking, that's it. I probably won't be able to get at any of this stuff again, which is okay because it was a broken tablet to begin with, and this is a higher purpose, a higher calling for the PC. For pasta.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor. Delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor. Questi bei panacchini, quel cappello leggero galante, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante, quel vermiglio d'onesco color, quel vermiglio d'onesco color. Non più avrai quei panacchini, quel cappello, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante. Non chiudrai farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girando, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor. Delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor. Fra guerrieri può far bacco, grande stacchi, stretto sacco, schioppo in spalla, sciabla a fianco, collo dritto, muso franco, un gran casco, un gran turbante, molto onor, poco cantante, poco cantante, poco cantante. Ed invece del fandango una marcia per il fango.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Lasagna PC. It cracks me up just looking at it, really. The cheese on the top is probably the biggest challenge of the whole thing. It looks like I just melted a whole bunch of Kraft singles on top, which, I mean, for pretty much just using paint. I mean, I used real cheese, totally. It doesn't look too bad. What I think came out the best was like the saucy layers in between, which I made it look like there was cheese coming out of that too, which is a lot more convincing than what's on the top, for sure. And it's absolutely hilarious to me having the I/O coming like straight out of the sauce. It cracks me up. I crack myself up, especially with the rigatoni vent for airflow in the back. Well, enough talk. Let's see how well this thing runs. Got a USB Type B plugged into the back of the TV. Now let's get the keyboard and mouse peripherals plugged in. Get that there, and that there. Like so, underneath the TV. I'll just let my lasagna hang all out there. And it's on, look at it go. So what we have here is a bit of a problem. It looks like I screwed up something in the registry in Windows when I was doing some initial tests when everything was all open and whatnot, and now Windows won't load. So now I have to try to find a way around this. I may have to reinstall Windows from a thumb drive or something like that. Just a minor hiccup, just a minor hiccup. Let's work on fixing this. Let me see if I can get the registry key first. Resetting this PC 1%. So this should be able to reset everything that I may have accidentally messed up in Windows, which would be ideal. This may take a while. And as you can see, I fixed the issue with Windows. I accidentally corrupted something in the system files, and it kind of killed Windows. So I was able to recover it, and now you can see it's back and running the way it's supposed to. So I've installed Steam, Netflix, Hulu, and Chrome because Edge is the worst. Let's get into some games and see how it works. Okay, so I've got the keyboard and mouse all set up. So that's all working good here. So let's go into Steam and let's try something that should not work on this computer. Let's open up Subnautica. First, before we do that, let me connect to my Xbox controller so we can have a true wireless controller support. It keeps booting me out for some reason. Let's try something that's native to Steam, see how well that works. Subnautica, I have the Epic Games Launcher version instead of the Steam version, so I have it just imported into the library. So that might not work as well when streaming. I was hoping it would, but in this instance, maybe not. Okay, here we go. All right, we're playing Rocket League now. This is cool. One problem though, the Xbox controller isn't working. Well then, okay. Well, let's try this first. I'll get it to work in a minute. I just want to see if the game runs well at all. As is. I'll join blue. I don't even know how to play with keyboard and mouse. Woo! So spacebar is the camera lock. Click. Left click is boost, right click is jump. Ooh, that's streaming a little pixely. It feels responsive enough though. Like, I don't feel like that's an issue. Go, beast, go! Look at him go. Whee! Uh-oh. Come on, Pasta. Come on, Pasta, you can do it. Come on! Whee! Guys, I'm playing Rocket League on a computer made of pasta. Probably the first in the world. Because why would anyone else do this? So let's go back to the settings. No, that's keyboard, sorry. No, get out of here, keyboard. We'll go to the drivers unavailable. I wonder if it just doesn't want to work with here. Well, so let's see if Hulu and Netflix work the way that they should. And there we go. It'll start playing, and then we'll just cut to me watching it, like.
So Micro Four Thirds cameras are getting more and more popular, but there's still an issue that is kind of inherent to the Micro Four Thirds camera. It's
It doesn't look when I check
lens,
the bar though. It slows it down a bit. Let's see what happens when we skip.
It's actually kind of annoying to deal with the lens with that hood on there, and I can't imagine the hood doing so much when it's that tiny.
Okay, it's not bad.
In case you need it. So removing the lid, you see the C.
Oh, whenever it wants me to scroll ahead, it freaks out a little bit. Oh, it's having a hard time getting out of full screen mode.
Let's get this thing back into range.
Oh, come on. Don't fail me now, Pasta. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. What? No. Ah, come back. Mini player, go. Mini player, activate.
Pretty much 10 mark right there.
Oh, man. So, to my disappointment and to Kato's, Steam streaming didn't work as well as I had hoped. It does work, but there's a lot of times when the screen blacked out and it would flash, and just the bit rate that it would stream at was terrible because I think the poor little Pasta couldn't handle it. And I'm a little also disappointed that the controller didn't really work out so well. Due to this version that I'm running on, is the controllers didn't work, and I'm disappointed because my backup was going to be to run emulators on this, and because I can't use a controller, it's going to make it kind of pointless. Oh man, so Windows just isn't liking that this thing still exists. Oh, hold on, let me stop myself there. So after a couple of days of needed updates that apparently didn't get recognized until I was in the middle of doing stuff, yeah, some long awaited 3-year updates that finally went through allowed me to finally be able to connect this Xbox controller, but also bogged the system down a little bit, so we're gonna get into that. But I was finally able to fire up some emulators. So with the controller, I can now wirelessly play some good old Game Boy Advance emulators. I'm gonna try something soon in a minute, but let's see how well this runs. The Game Boy Advance was never meant to be seen on this big of a screen. Okay, I'm finally in game, playing the Game Boy Advance. Not bad. I think there's a little bit of an echo. There is. This computer can barely run the Game Boy Advance. That's terrible. The sound is just like garbled chaos. And there's like a lot of lag in just walking around. I'm having a hard time believing that the CPU can't handle a Game Boy Advance emulator. Oh. Woo! Those graphics? Okay. So, we learned some things. Okay, so that's painful. I was hoping that maybe I could do a N64 emulator or a PlayStation emulator, but I was having a hard enough time with a Game Boy Advance emulator. And there's a few reasons for that, because obviously the Intel Atom chip that's in here is far superior to whatever was in the Game Boy Advance, even the PlayStation, even a GameCube. There's a much more powerful processor, but Windows 10 with its updates in recent years are meant for much more powerful machines than the older Intel Atoms from like 2014, which this just can barely handle this and run. It's nice that I could use the controller, but on what? I can barely play a Game Boy Advance emulator. I could continue on if I wanted to. It's just the sound, when you're already dealing with 8-bit chiptunes, being so choppy and chaotic is just painful. Not to mention it was laggy and slow. Now, if you're going to be playing old games, then at least instantaneous movement is necessary. But alas, this is a gaming fail. Some of the other things I noticed once I've updated it, Hulu became somewhat unusable. Whenever I'm watching something, it'll just like all of a sudden start stuttering and then just crash. And then I have to restart the computer and go all over again. So it's tragic, really. It really is. But this thing just doesn't work the way it was supposed to. And it brings me much sadness, but I learned something. Technology doesn't age well, especially with Windows. Anyway, that pretty much leaves me with no other choice than what I'm about to do. Supposed to be so much more. But you failed me, Pasta. You failed me. Serve a higher cause now. Well, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a very long project that I'm mildly proud of, at the very least. If you want to support this channel, leave a like and buy some of the pasta in the description below so that, you know, maybe I can buy a new sweater. If you want to see another crazy project in the future, leave a comment below saying what you want to see. And until then, guys, I'll see you later.